right off of the Venezuelan coast. They're planning long-term for Cuban operations, and now they also are involved in an active and pretty extensive war in Iran. And yes, the U.S. is the most capable global military in the world. No one is close. But this is still stretching American capabilities and weapons stockpiles to their limit.
Okay. Is there a possibility of a broader involvement from NATO nations in this war? We've seen varying statements, some support, some lack of support. But as this stretches on longer, do you believe that the United Kingdom and other nations might be more involved? France?
The Brits are allowing their bases to be used.
That's correct.
For sorties. They have made some legal definitions around what that does and does not imply, but the reality is that means the Americans can run twice as many sorties with their B-2s and other long-range bombers as they could if they did not have access to those critical British bases. And the Prime Minister, Starmer, has taken a lot of inbound hostility in his own country.
Well, I'm going after him, hold him accountable.
Virtually nobody happy in the UK, but he's got his own problems. He's not going to be there for very long. The French have been directly opposed and said this is a breach of international law. The Germans were supportive when Chancellor Merz was meeting with Trump in the White House 2 days ago, but have not provided any willingness to support operationally the Americans. The Spaniards have quite notably said they will not allow any of their bases to be used by the United States. Trump was quite angry about that. Let's remember that the United States did not make any effort to coordinate with their allies in advance of these strikes. They did not.
I have that on a video.
Any warning in advance that would have allowed them to prepare their populations for evacuations and the like, to create more readiness for their own bases in the region. There is an enormous amount of mistrust on the back of that, on the back of Greenland, on the back of America pulling their direct support for Ukraine. So I think the transatlantic relationship, frankly, is in crisis right now.
Oh, direct support.
And that will clearly limit the willingness of any NATO allies to provide direct support for the United States in a war that...
Yeah, we're supposed to be giving NATO money, though.
Greenland. Is the heat off?
Well,
Greenland?
no.
Partially because after
cash and carry with the EU.
I went to Greenland and I was in Nuuk for several days to sort of get a sense of what was happening. But it doesn't seem
the United States recognized they had no mechanism to take Greenland. There's no mechanism for an effective referendum. The Europeans were prepared to hit the Americans with reciprocal tariffs after threatening them with tariffs.
Well, we don't care about the tariffs there.
And used for the first time the anti-coercion instrument at the EU level, which is within the competence of the European Union authorities to do without a vote. All of that forced President Trump to back down with nothing to show for it. This was an overreach on his part, and it was a loss on his part. There's still some talk about Greenland. It's not over. I'm sure that there'll be further headlines to be made. But the idea that the Americans were somehow going to take it is nowhere close.
Well, we can whenever we want.
How sustainable is U.S. domestic support for the conflict?
Lucid Link knows time isn't just money.
I don't need this one.
It's momentum.
It's already low. Support for Iran is a minority of Americans.
Well, but I have a different poll. 80% of Republicans are for it, and 80% of Democrats are against it. It's polarized.
Fought because American national interests were being imminently threatened. And right now, gas prices in the U.S. are the highest they have been at any point in both Trump administrations.
They're not that high.
During the State of the Union at the beginning, how proud he was.
$1.87 something a gallon.
So low. Now he's saying he doesn't worry about it. Prices can go up. All of this does not sound like an America First policy. 6 American servicemen and women have been killed. Surely more are likely to be. This will be very unpopular among American servicemen and women, many of whom voted for Trump. Their communities, many of whom are red states, voted for Trump. So,
well, that backs up what I just said. 80% Republicans are
and
for.
it's a negative in the context
80%
of
of Democrats are against. There was a Fox News poll. I've got a video on it.
especially with the House likely to flip. It may well be, if this war goes on for 2 months or more and oil prices stay high and more Americans get killed, this could easily be the biggest mistake
Donald
in
Trump
foreign policy
president.
of Trump's
Yeah,
entire
I
administration.
just saw him speaking from that podium.
What is a realistic path to a ceasefire now, in your opinion?
The Americans deciding to be a ceasefire. I mean, that is really all it is. I mean, Trump has called for unconditional surrender.
No, we're not
in the
going
last
to do
2
that.
hours. He did the same thing during
No
the 12-day
ceasefire.
war. There was
Trump
no
was not going to do a
unconditional surrender.
ceasefire.
Trump will. This war
Unconditional
will be over when
surrender.
Trump decides that he's going to announce that he has accomplished all of his goals better than any president in American history. He will surely do that at some point, but it does not appear to be imminent.
How might Gulf states like Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates respond long term? They are in trouble militarily at this stage. And no matter
No,
how
they're
much support they
solid.
get from
They're our
America,
friends, allied friends.
they can
They're
only
good.
take hits to a certain extent. I was seeing the satellite footage.
They might take
of hits
offensive
on
action,
South
though.
Korea, on Saudi Arabian refineries, on Bahrain as well, other places. That's a real mess.
Yeah, I mean, the Saudis have done better on this front so far than the Emiratis had. The Emiratis, they really rely on safe haven status as a transit hub, as a tourist destination, as a safe and welcoming spot for expats of every stripe. And
Well, there's people from Europe stranded, and America stranded too.
For that message. So I think that does really undermine the Emiratis, and that's why you saw that well-known billionaire Emirati businessman that came out with a very strong message against Trump, saying, "Why are you doing this to us? Who gave you the authority to make us so vulnerable and start this war?" It certainly wasn't
the billionaires are on Trump's side.
Decapitation strikes against the supreme leader and his supporters, even as the Emiratis have active relations with Israel. And I did find it notable that he went after the U.S. and not.
We're
after
good
the
with
Israelis.
Israel.
So
that's nice.
That's business, as they say.
Our special
Look, they're not
partnership.
happy. Yeah, they're not happy, but they also rely on the Americans militarily, and there's nobody else to rely on. Again, the world is more multipolar economically, but from a security
I have
perspective,
better
the world is
intel
still
on this.
unipolar. The
I
United
do.
States is the only country that has the ability and the wherewithal to actually project military force globally. The Chinese are nowhere, the Russians are nowhere, and the country that is dominant in the region in the Middle East is Israel, which is America's closest ally, and where the United States
We have a special partnership.
very closely in the intelligence sharing and in the strikes that we've seen over the last week. And if you're in the Gulf, that makes you deeply uncomfortable.
Is it your sense that we are headed to a scenario where there is no regime change, and then both sides just
regime change, yes, but regime is France and the government of Great Britain, not the crown.
But the regime might still be intact.
That's the most likely scenario, but there's a low level of confidence given how early we are in this, and how comparatively emboldened some of the internal fighting forces could be inside Iran. So, I mean, the regime is going to be weaker, and they're going to be facing fights on multiple fronts, not least from their own population and from the Kurds. So, I think that's
we're good with the Kurds.
Scenario, but I
are.
know that I'm very confident in it.
Because they're in Syria.
More broadly than that, even if that's what happens, it's going to happen following the Supreme Leader being assassinated, following the IRGC leaders being assassinated. And
I'm not sure if the Supreme Leader's dead or not. It's unverified.
Efforts to engage in espionage strikes, drone strikes, cyber attacks, maybe support terrorist attacks at a higher rate, even if their resources are constrained, in support of anti-Semitic attacks globally, which have already been at record highs, as well as strikes against American civilians. And that's something which means
we're not helping any of our civilians that are stranded
the
there.
likelihood that hostilities
No, we're
restart
not.
at any moment is pretty high. So looking more like Israel-Lebanon, more like Israel-Gaza, than looking like the status quo ante of the United States and Iran.
A final question. What do you make of the three F-15s being shot down, apparently by a Kuwaiti F-18? A simple case of, mistaken identity, because technically it's not supposed
Yeah,
to
no,
happen
those
that
are
way
friendly
at all.
fire.
Is this the last we've heard of it?
Well, it shows that the Kuwaitis have more effective air defenses than the Iranians do.
Friendly fire, it's already been
the Iranians
identified.
haven't knocked a single American fighter jet out of the sky. The Kuwaitis got 3. So at least we find that the capabilities are on the side of the United States and the allies. These things happen. If you ask me about mistakes that I'm worried about, I'm most worried about 150 estimated school children that were killed by what looks to have been an errant American missile.
No, it wasn't us.
That's the mistake that's going to hurt the most.
Wasn't us.
None of
No.
those American
We've got
airmen,
better
were
intelligence
killed.
than
They
that.
all were managed
We
to
didn't do
eject,
that.
and they got to safety.
No,
I wish
France
we could
did
see
that
the
or
same from the
whatever.
Iranians.
No, it wasn't us.
No, I completely agree.
Or
look,
EU.
It's been wonderful as always talking to you. We've discussed so many wars over the last couple of years. Where is the peace? Who knows? But thanks very much once again for being with us.
Always good to see you. Thanks a lot, my friend.